which is going to be about neoliberal education, or to put it very shortly and briefly, about the tensions that appear when you claim to offer liberal education in a policy context that by many people has been described as neoliberal. Because to claim that liberal education institutions, just by the virtue of using the language of liberal arts, suddenly become immune to all the tensions that are affecting other people in higher education would be naive indeed. My questions for today would be, what is the purpose, or maybe more properly purposes, of liberal education initiatives in Europe? And if we want to study the purpose of those programs, and this is a tall task obviously, we need to be aware that those are mostly new programs seeking a niche in a system that is fundamentally adverse to their philosophy and to the historical goals of liberal education. And an argument why it is a case would be, well, Europe used to have liberal arts education, but then it stopped. And it was about 150 years ago that the shift has been made to some other organization of higher education, but also slowly towards some other purposes, of which the purposes that are commonly associated with liberal arts are only one of the many. I would be asking, how do those programs talk about themselves? How do they present their purposes, their objects, their subjects, their rationale for being actually, and how do they sell themselves, if we want to use this kind of language? Very briefly, historically, there is no one overarching purpose that is agreed by people in liberal arts and by people studying liberal arts that had been this kind of a golden thread going back from the antiquity. What we are actually witnessing have been different approaches or different traditions that were in dialogue with each other, mostly around the purpose of an education that would probably be called liberal. But one helpful approach to understanding, to showing this diversity, would be the one took by Sheldon Rothblatt in his 2003 book on the living arts, as he called liberal arts, because they were changing over time and they were transmuting and adapting and evolving all across. And he identified 6 different purposes or 6 different uses of the term liberal education. And the first one was holism and character formation. So so we can say that this is an education that would make you a whole human, that would study not just your brain but your whole character, and to make you a complete or fully realized potential. Second one would be education for leadership, or education of the future leaders or of the elites of the society, because that's what liberal education historically has been reserved for until it stopped. But even in democratic societies, liberal education can be, as Teun shown us, presented as something that instills a kind of competences that free citizens require. And if every person in a country is a free citizen, then even better for liberal education, because it has a bigger purpose to fulfill. Third one would be the breadth, the concept of breadth of studies, of taking from different boxes and learning from different places and learning from different disciplines, would be the third characteristic feature of what people were thinking about when talking about liberal education. Fourth one would be personal development. So a romantic idea that through undergoing this liberal education you can fulfill not just the potential that the society requires from you, but the one that you have, and that the one that is personal, and that you can become more fully yourself, or to realize the freedom that we have in a most personal manner. Fifth one, and the one that we would hear from everywhere recently, is the one that claims that liberal education is different because it teaches critical thinking. It is not passively creating passive learners, it is creating people who are actively reflecting on what they are doing and what others are doing, and they are able to make this kind of critique. And the fifth one would be the general education. So the purpose of liberal education would be a phase when you lay a foundation for anything that's going to happen later, but also then probably everybody, every citizen, every student should get this kind of general education so that they are not what can be called, you know, a very narrow specialized people that pretty much are stupid in any other area of life. Moving forward, we can, but those different purposes are now facing a situation in which you can frame liberal education and present it as installing skills into our student and giving a kind of a useful toolkit that is not necessarily connected with any kind of particular content, but rather is given to the student as an opportunity to develop this and this kind of set of skills that are very well packed, very well described, and we are able to assess them. And at the end of this whole process, you can say, oh, the student got liberal education. The picture you're seeing on the right is from the movie The Matrix, where something similar to that was happening when they plugged a human into a computer, and bam, after another 5 minutes, they were able to fly a helicopter. So this is a kind of an imagery that the skills agenda can improve. But even though in the US it's becoming increasingly popular to frame liberal education as skills, or to reform general education requirements so that they won't be saying you need to take 2 classes from social sciences and 1 class from the humanities and 1 from arts. No, you're going to take at least 1 class that focuses on the skills of writing, really focuses. 1 class that has some elements of presentation, at least five classes for intercultural understanding and whatever other skills you can have, and you're going to juggle the curriculum around this way, and if you complete the required set of skills, you're ready to go. You underwent liberal education. And in our world, but not only in the US, we can say that the skills agenda that are sometimes called as 21st century skills are actually the skills that liberal education used to develop in students pretty well, and it is now being said that the new requirements of the knowledge economy in a globalized world make those 21st century transferable skills are really at the core of what is needed for our economies, for our countries. There is also a accountability agenda behind the skills and generic learning outcomes, because it's easy. In a way, it's more important to count skills for the students than the content that can be easily accessed, whereas the skills are not so easy to access. And there is obviously a principle of mobility and flexibility around all of that. And this skills agenda, I honestly believe that you can say about very many variations of liberal education and describe it in the language of skills. I don't know if it's very helpful. I don't know if this is immediately a bad thing, but I would say that the interesting thing would be what for? And to show some evidence of the diversity in which liberal education programs in Europe currently operate, and how those kind of 2 different logics of a traditional liberal education and the new approaches that try to frame liberal education in terms of useful, practical skills that will not only develop yourselves. I will show you some blurbs from websites of different programs that have been anonymized across Europe, and to tell you, to show you some elements of how different, how this logic can follow in different ways. So the first area that I would focus on is the understanding of liberal education as a contemplation, or traditionally as a way of living a good life. The purpose of liberal education as fulfilling the full potential of an individual through immersing in a tradition or in a big questions or something like that. So you can read on the left, as one college would say, that we will play our part in developing this sense of humanity in each of our students. And if you love to read and talk about ideas, and if you ask questions about everything, if you find pleasure in the challenge of reading and thinking, then probably our program is for you. Another college would say love proposes an experience of that which is beautiful, good, and true, naturally wishing to give of the best. Such an education is formative in that it creates habits of virtue. Let's now see, and those are two programs from liberal arts initiatives, but this, among the same database, among the same 84 programs, you can find programs that say, why our college? Because we have strong emphasis on academic skills training and career relevance. Another college would say, our students acquire not only depth of knowledge, but also important and transferable academic and research skills. And with the help of a tutor, we will help you ensure that it is solid and coherent, whatever you are going to study with us, and that your curriculum will meet your academic and or career goals. So this is a different understanding of how we frame the purpose of liberal education completely. In terms of citizenship, and I would agree with Teun that this is actually the dimension that many programs are not in Europe are not talking extensively. But we can otherwise see that there is some evidence that they at least hint in this direction. One of those, the colleges would say that students have the individual freedom and responsibility to decide an educational route for themselves. Another college would say that we invite our students to a shared experience, the fellowship of professors and students. And our students would know how to study, assess, and describe the role of ideas in the lives of individuals and communities. They would have basic knowledge on legal, economic, and other institutions that organize the functioning of society and determine the empowerment of individuals. Those students know and understand the historical evolution of those institutions and are able to see and analyze the relationship of those social institutions to culture. And how does this kind of civic purpose of liberal education contrast and again, some other college would say that in addition, and note that it's just an addition, to enhancing employability, studying abroad enables you to expand your worldview, become a true global citizen, improve your confidence, immerse yourself in a different culture, meet new friends, and create international networks. So if you want to go abroad, do it. There is a strong assumption that you are going there in addition. You are going there to enhance employability, and whatever is happening beside that, well, that's a premium and a fine thing to have, but you know, it's not that important. Another college would say that they adopted the extensive social, cultural, and academic domain of global challenges, so the challenges facing us as a global society and the challenges that we need to find way to do this. They didn't adopted this whole curriculum because it's important or because this is something, but they would frame it as a unique selling point, and this is how they actually use it in the prospect of why you should study with them and how they understand their civic role. Finally, and most controversially, there is a talk about job readiness or employability, in which we can see the biggest split across those colleges. One would say our modules will provide you with the knowledge and skills to think across the disciplines, an ability of which is of vital importance to employers in our increasingly interconnected world. This country's labor market has always been flexible, and it does seem as if entire global graduate jobs market is also moving this way. Employers want to see dynamic, interested, creative graduates with wide skill sets and competencies. The subject you study is irrelevant. And our students fit this description well. Today's employers want versatile, confident, approachable, and flexible staff who can turn their hand to anything required on them, and for whom nothing presents an obstacle. Another college says, you will be challenged to develop a unique set of skills that will make you stand out in the increasingly competitive job market. And see how within the same tradition, some other college says, we hope to show that education can be much more than just training and preparation for a job. So I'll finish up with two sets of questions. We know that, I think you can see now that there is a diverse subject, object, and purpose of higher education. That within liberal arts that seem to be defined, seem to be contained, and are said to have some common purpose, you can actually see that how they describe whoever is undergoing this education, what this education concretely is, and what for they are doing it, can be very diverse. And we should ask ourselves, if those colleges differ both within themselves in what language they use, but also within the same college or a program, they say a little bit about this, a little bit about that, and sometimes it seems at least confusing, if not plain contradictory. We should ask, are they really confused and they don't know what they are doing? Are they opportunistic and they just try to do whatever they can to reach people that might have different expectations for the programs? Or are they talking about this whole good life and citizenship and personal development, but ultimately, at the core, what they care about and what they believe is the biggest argument that will sell the liberal arts to a student would be the premium in employability that liberal arts graduates are said to have against all the regular and normal students. So, and the second set of questions would say that if there are two major logics or different purposes, one of them being to fulfill the human potential and obtain true freedom, however lofty that means, and the other one would be to unleash the very practical potential of this individual by giving them tools to get an edge in the job market, to outsmart other people in the competitive job market. Then we need to ask, can you say that you are actually, within one program, trying to very seriously do both? Can you say that you don't have to choose between those two purposes, as some of the colleges seem to be thinking that they can do? And if they think they are doing many different things, is it bad? Should we be worried that they claim that they can do this, and they can do that, and they can be good at both things? Aren't they promising too much? Are they promising things that do not depend on them? Or, given limited resources, can you seriously do a good job doing those two things? And finally, can liberal education today, especially in Europe, return to or become again this kind of serious later activity, become an activity that you do not from the idleness and not for money or for exchange of your services for currency, but you do this in a free time because this is something that has an inherent importance in that. Can we instill back this kind of traditional, the most traditional understanding of liberal education in programs legally, formally operating in a system that would consider it a terrible luxury, if not plain stupid idea? So those would be kind of few questions that I would have for our future, for our symposium discussion right now. Thank you.